I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music, something about being awesome at music reviews, and a ton of them, like for 4.5 years of music reviews.
It's true. A lot
4.5.
A lot of music.
We've been doing this a lot, like every week for like 4.5 years. That's crazy.
I know.
That's cray. We're in that vein. We're kind of just sick of doing new music, so we just quit. So we're doing some throwbacks this week. Today we want to review Fleetwood Mac's Rumours. You guys requested that we review Rumours, and since we haven't really touched on Fleetwood Mac, and both Tom and I are big classic rock heads. I mean, our dads did us well in saying you must listen to classic rock, and I think Fleetwood Mac and Rumours, for that matter, fits into that vein of album classification. Now, obviously, anything Fleetwood Mac does, especially in the Lindsey, Buckingham, Stevie Nicks era of Fleetwood Mac, which is the mid-'70s and when this album came out, it's a bit on the softer side, a bit, a lot more of the softer classic rock with more ballads, more just general pop songwriting formats, and obviously very, very powerful, addictive vocal hooks. Tom, background on Fleetwood Mac, background on Rumours. What do you know about these guys?
Yeah, well, these guys have a very long-spanning career, which actually dates back to the 60s. Now, this album came out in 1977.
This is their 11th album.
11th album. Well, what's funny is it's the one that people know the most for, and it's really you can kind of think of it as the second album in the new generation of Fleetwood Mac.
And what I think people just visualize
really
Fleetwood
know them
Mac
for. Exactly. Before then, Peter Green was in the band, and it had a much different sound. It was kind of more blues focused. So they're still bringing some of that influence in there, and of course Mick Fleetwood on the drums, John McVie on the bass. Those are kind of they're kind of the staples of the band, and then of course you have the other members coming in. And Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks play a huge role in this album.
Huge,
absolutely huge. But really, I mean, it was one of those weird things of just everything lining up correctly for these five to get together and make this album.
It's really kind of a super group. This reminds me, for whatever reason, the New Pornographers have always reminded me of like the modern day indie rock version of Fleetwood Mac.
I can see that.
And what Fleetwood Mac did for classic rock at the time that it was out, which at the time was just, this is just music, this is rock and roll, baby. And so much of what they do is all about it's all about songwriting. I think that if anything, what has made Rumours such a popular record, and what has made it so that it stands the test of time. I mean, keep in mind, most of the songs that you hear on this record are still played on modern classic rock radio. They're still on every greatest hit CD of the 1970s. I mean, so there's something that this band was doing right, and that is just magnificently good songwriting. Writing really nice guitar parts, structuring a song well so that it has dynamic emphasis on certain parts of the chorus, and then great vocal presentation and intriguing lyrics. That is what defines almost, if not every track on Rumours, both sides of this record. Just to go through some of my favorite songs, and Tom, you can do the same with yours. My favorite song on the first half of this record is track 2, Dreams, which is a Stevie Nicks track, and I just think that it has just great melody, great verse, and really good lyrics for that matter. And my favorite song on the second half of this record, or the B-side of this record, is the opening track, The Chain. And I think that is one of the most quintessential Fleetwood Mac songs, and really quintessential songs of the 1970s.
Absolutely, and that's my favorite track on the album, for sure. And it's got so much feeling in it. And we don't always like to talk about, some of the drama and stories that go on behind albums, but I think that for Rumours, that's a very integral part of how the album turned out. You had the two couples in the band, Stevie and Lindsey, and then John and Christine, and they were fighting all the time. They were broken up for all practical purposes. Mick Fleetwood, the drummer, was having problems at home with his wife as well. I mean, their lives were pretty much in turmoil, but what they've kind of said is that turmoil is really what allowed them to make the best music they could. I mean, on this album, they're singing about each other. They're singing about the problems they have with each other. They're singing about the lovers that they've moved on to from the other people who are still in the band with them. I mean, how do you even put together an album under those circumstances?
Let's just say the studio was tense.
Yes.
And that tension comes out in the songwriting, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, and that's the beautiful thing about music, is that all these like shitty things that are happening to people really inspire great music for the rest of us to enjoy. So, like, if you're a musician, you're pretty much destined, if you want to be successful, you need to feel shitty. Yeah. Like, your life needs to be in turmoil. And that sucks for you, but it's great for me.
There you go. Yeah, that's the way to think of it, right?
Yeah, but you feel miserable. I'll enjoy your success.
So the way that it all comes together on Rumours, in my mind, is, you know, you have all of these very conflicting personalities, you know, struggling relationships, but you also have that on the level of the music, where people had very different ideas of where the sound should go, and those conflicts really actually help to create the balance. They all balance each other out. Lindsey Buckingham was a lot of the force that made this more of a pop-structured album, whereas some of the other musicians come more from an improvisational kind of blues background. And that fusion of those elements is really what allowed this to be successful, paired with the great songwriting.
That's the genius in the style that you hear.
Because there's a lot of variety when it comes down to it.
Absolutely, and that's what I just wanted to touch on, is that this album has a wide range, and while it is kind of a smorgasbord approach, there's not like an overarching concept or theme going on here. It's just a collection of really well-written tracks, really well-written and well-performed. I mean, you listen to the guitar in track 3, Never Going Back Again, and that song, you know, written by Buckingham, is just mind-blowing, the instrumentation that you hear. It's an acoustic guitar track, though, and you have some ballad tracks on here, and there's also a lot of tracks like The Chain that just really have a lot of intensity, and while they're not just like heavy rock tracks, they do have a rock and roll vibe to them and have good intensity in what is at the time considered a rock and roll track. You know, there's a lot of range and intensity here, and that makes this listen a really like fun listen from start to finish. That fluidity and the intensity, I think, makes this record fun to listen to.
Absolutely. And I will say, now, it shows up on pretty much every best albums of all time list.
It has to.
It's just one of those classics. It's hugely influential. For me, you know, it's not in my upper echelon, personally, when it comes to just listening experiences for me. I respect the hell out of it. A big part of it for me is, I'll come out and say, the last 3 tracks I'm not overly keen on. I Don't Want to Know, Oh Daddy, and Gold Dust Woman. I think they're good tracks, but I feel like some of the sounds had already been done earlier in the album, maybe a little bit better.
Tracks 1 through 8 pretty much make up the, like, the monument that you see Rumours as being, and then tracks 9 through 11 aren't really up to the same part. They're still good, they're just not quite, so that definitely does.
I also have to say that while this is, as I've said, a great combination of styles and a great variety throughout the album, I don't think that anything stylistically about it is particularly groundbreaking. The groundbreaking thing about it is just the quality of the songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely.
In 1977, but a lot of these sounds, you know, or things had been going on since the 60s, even some of the songwriting style, especially Stevie Nicks, well, and even like Carole King comes to mind. A lot of the traditional singer-songwriters of the 70s, that was another big thing. Obviously, this is a 5-piece band, so it allows them to have a very full and well-produced sound, and that is just running rampant on this album. I mean, the production value is for 1977, the mixing, all the instrumentation, it's spot on. And to be able to have the dedication to put it together this immaculately while everything is just going to absolute shit within the band personally, I mean, I can't even imagine that. So my hat's off to them. While this isn't a personal favorite, but my figurative hat off to them. While this isn't one of my personal favorites, I still understand why it does go down in history as being a classic, and totally deserves it.
I totally agree. Now, because we are, you know, feigning to be a music review site here, what would you give this if you had to assign an arbitrary number that reflects if this album came out today?
For me, personal enjoyment, I'm giving it an 88.
Very close to you, 90. Right. So 89 from us, which means this is a really good record in today's standards, and contextually speaking, one of the best records of all time, as Thomas pointed out, shows up on every classic albums list that you just need to go out and listen to. So, if you haven't, go out, listen to Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, and let us know what your thoughts are. Also, let us know what your favorite Fleetwood Mac album is. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know, www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic, where you're probably watching this review. Also, please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know if there's any records you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.